on this, again, one lobby doors are locked. 105 copy. Keep that.
Okay, so this is Cole Morris, your instructor from How to Succeed in Your Security Career. And if you've been affiliated with the course for any length of time, you know I like to occasionally update the curriculum, add value to your registration, to your enrollment, and also to keep it relevant, and also perhaps even like keep you motivated in your journey as a security professional. Now, today's subject is going to be the security job interview. I'm not going to be talking about basic career stuff like be on time, dress appropriately, you know, all this other stuff. Okay, I'm going to talk about specifically the aspect of a security job interview. All right, and with that said, I want to share with you a secret I have evolved over the years, and that is, if you are lucky enough to be invited to an interview, you need to do your intel work, you need to do your background work, you need to do your basic footwork, okay, to learn as much about the target organization as possible. This target organization is the one that you're trying to get hired by and employed by. And so you want to get on the internet and you want to surf around and you want to find out things like, what does the company do? What's its history? Okay, what are key points in history? Any significant things like mergers and acquisitions? How long have they been in the neighborhood? How do they make their money? Who are their competitors? You want to get a broad overshot. It's kind of like doing competitive intelligence, but not for your employer's benefit, but for your benefit. All right, so you want to do a CI, competitive intelligence survey, and figure out what this company is, because at the end of the day, you're going to need that information during the interview, and I'll explain that in just a minute or two. Let's take a look. Okay, so I don't want to be rude or unfair, but you'd be amazed at how many people show up in an interview and have no frickin' idea what this potential employer does and how they operate and the basics of life. These people barely know what planet they're on, and so that's what you're going against, and that's what you have to fight against. And so let's defy gravity and move on and get above the fray. Stay tuned. Okay, so for assumptions for this particular lecture, we assume that you are a experienced security officer, a supervisor, or whatever, and you're going for a promotion, either from line officer or from a shift lead to a security supervisor to a manager, whatever the case may be. Now, that does not mean the content here is not valuable to entry-level security people. It most certainly is. However, we go with these assumptions. First of all, you're applying for a leadership position, a mid-management position, a supervisory position, so to speak. And we also assume that the people you're talking to, interviewing with, is that they have their act together. And typically, in today's world, they always terminate a job interview with, "So, Bob, do you have any questions for us?" And that's the secret. That's the golden key. So that's why you're doing your homework and your intel on the front side, so that you're ready to rock and roll on the downside. Let's take a look. Okay, so because you've done your homework in preparation for this interview, you know that some of the primary competitors of the candidate company are based in China. And of course, as we all know, China is infamously involved in corporate espionage and stealing other people's proprietary information. So you want to know, what role, if any, does the security department play in protecting proprietary information? So what does this demonstrate? This demonstrates you have a big picture, you're aware of who the competitors are for the company, and you're anxious to take a more strategic role in the operation should it become available. So that's just one example of how this deep dive, how this pre-interview preparation can pay off big time. Let's keep going. Here's another example. Do you have any questions for us? Well, for example, your response might be, "I read in the media you are expanding into the Midwest and have purchased or leased several facilities in Kansas and Ohio. Has security been part of this acquisition effort? Are these locations getting surveyed from a security point of view? Now, what does this tell the interviewer? It tells them that once again, you're up on current events within the company. You have a broader view than most job candidates would have, and you're concerned about not only the current job in front of you, but also risks and threats and possible security assessments outside the usual corporate headquarters. Now, this question may not be the result of your pre-interview research. However, it is an important business-oriented question to consider asking. For example, I understand I would be reporting to Ms. Smith. However, who does she report to? What is security's place in the organization? So once again, this type of question presents you more of a business person, a business professional that just happens to be specializing in security. You want to know where security fits into the overall corporate structure, because that will tell you many things. It'll tell you what the reporting channels are, how prioritized security is, perhaps even what kind of budget the security department has. It'll tell you a lot going forward. Okay, now let's talk about KPIs, or key performance indicators. All businesses run on numbers, okay? Security, if it's a true business discipline, can be no different. So key performance indicators are things that you track in the security department to determine whether you are a wise investment. Are you meeting your goals? Without goals, you're going to be just basically a ship afloat without a sail and getting blown by the whims of the wind. So KPIs. Now I took a few notes here on some KPIs I've come across in my experience. And so, for example, a KPI for the security department might be inventory control. How much property have you stopped getting ripped off by employees or by shoplifters or whatever? Inventory control and loss prevention. Numbers for call to service. This can be numbers for escorting employees from their office to their car at night for safety. It can be calls for service for unlocking an office door for an executive or a manager who comes in at an off hour, things like this. Injuries to staff, another KPI. Injuries to staff as a result of violence is another one, especially in areas like healthcare, okay? In-service trainings. That's a good one. That's where you provide value add. You're not just the guard at the door. You're also the security schoolhouse, if you will. And so maybe you teach seminars on personal safety, personal defense. Maybe you teach seminars on how to get a protection order should you need one from a estranged spouse or estranged romantic other. These types of things. Workplace violence seminars comes to mind. How many internal investigations does the department perform? How many are cleared? How many are in an open status? Use of force. How many times is the use of force used? The levels of use of force, and all these things are trackable and can tell not only you but your bosses what the department is doing and if it's going in the right direction or the wrong direction. If you are using, if the events of use of force are escalating and going up, you're probably not doing something right, okay? So you're going to have to take some kind of remedial action. So all these things are just examples, KPIs, another indicator that you're thinking outside the box, you're more than a guard at the door, and that you're going to be a business asset instead of just a cost center, all right? So keep that in mind. Let's keep going. Okay, so your pre-interview research might also suggest questions regarding rapid growth of the company. All right, how is security adjusting to the rapid growth? For example, maybe branch offices are growing up all over the countryside. How are security requirements being matched or serviced for those? Or franchisees are buying into the enterprise, and are we providing security services for those franchisees? Employee turnover. Why is employee turnover important, and why is this research important? Because employee turnover is an indicator of one, perhaps organizational dysfunction, but more importantly, it can be an indicator of employee disgruntlement and dissatisfaction, which, as we all know, can bring to the forefront certain security issues in the workplace. Labor organizations, organizing for labor, union activity. If it's happening over there at one of your competitors within the industry, is it going to float towards your industry? And if so, what's the role that security is expected to play in that event? And also, maybe there's a certain political activity or political sensitivity that your company or this candidate company that you're talking to, they've attracted some type of negative media coverage, negative social media coverage. There are a lot of nuts out there, a lot of people with axes to grind. So are the executives being placed, or key personnel being placed, in harm's way or potentially harm's way? And what does that drive? Does that drive a executive protection program or no? So all these questions and others can be formulated with the correct research and the correct intelligence collection at the front end of the interview. Now, before I go, 2 important points. 1, don't overdo it. Okay, maybe ask 1, 2, 3 at the very most. You got to read the room. Okay, there at the interview conclusion, read the room, but don't be asking like 12 different questions based on your research. Pick the most salient that you believe is going to get you the most mileage, and press on with those. Okay, but don't make this into a litany of questions and you're interrogating them. Okay, so be cautious of that. Secondly, do not, when they ask, do you have any questions for us, never, ever, ever say, nope. That's an immediate turn off, at least to me as a interviewer. Okay, that means you're telling me that we've discussed all this stuff and we've had this conversation and there's not one single question you have. You don't even need to ask where the bathroom is or whether your parking's going to be validated. I mean, like that's better than nothing. I mean, but avoid that, and if you're given a chance to ask questions, make them well formulated, tailored, and make them so that they show you in the best light possible. Other than that, I'd say go after that next job like a beagle after a hamburger. I'm Cole Morris, and I'll see you around campus. Bye-bye.
107, pavilion, 1 lobby doors are locked. 105 copy. Keypad locked down. Employee doors locked. Pavilion 2.